In this A2 Music Tech Revision Guide, we're going to look at producing under controlled conditions. For many of you, this will be the first exam that you'll ever face where you are expected to do practical tasks. Mostly this is refined to just coursework, but in this exam you have to do the practical tasks. Pretty much everything that you've learned in AS, A2 and the AS exam will kind of come down to now, okay? So you're going to be expected to look at all of those editing techniques that you've learned throughout the courseworks, look at all that sound creation techniques that you've learned throughout the courseworks and apply it in a more practical way, okay? This is a fantastic way for the examiner to see what you actually know, what you've learned over the last 2 years. How much of it is stuff that you've done for yourself? How much of it is stuff that you've kind of excelled at and gone away and practiced? Because if you are one of those people that kind of has done this and gone through the process 6 times now, you're going to have no problem with any of these tasks. These tasks are going to be so easy and you're going to have a lot of fun. Which brings me to the next slide. Producing under controlled conditions, the best exam ever. It really is. It's a fantastic exam. Out of all the exams I've ever had to do, this is by far my most favourite one, because you're doing what you already know. And if you're a good student and you've really worked hard, this is going to be no problem for you at all. So you don't have to worry. However, you do need to be aware of what you could be asked, because you will need to practice still to make sure that you don't panic or whatever. So the kind of things that you could be asked and the kind of structure that's going to go into it. So you get normally 3 practical tasks. This normally comes, not always, sometimes it's different, but normally question 2 is your first practical task. And they'll say to you, okay, bounce down, do some editing to a bass track and then bounce it down as track 1. Okay, then question 3, it'll be something like, I'll edit this vocal and bounce down just the vocal as track 2. And then question 5 will be, here's a massive mixing task, follow these instructions and then produce this track fully and then bounce it down as track 3. The main thing you have to do is, and I'll just bring my mouse into play here, is you have to follow these instructions, okay? They're very clear and every year they're slightly different. They may ask you to bounce down as a mono, they may ask you to bounce down as a stereo. Pretty much it's always uncompressed. It has to work on a CD, that's the most important thing, okay? So it'll say something like, okay, bounce it down, 16-bit 44 stereo wave file, absolutely. And then it will tell you the convention, so the naming convention. Name it, task 3, your candidate name, followed by bass track or whatever it should be. Now, a really important note for this is all of your bounce downs have to be done during the exam. You cannot do them after the exam. They have to be done during the exam. So once you've bounced your tracks down, listen to them on your media player, whether that be iTunes or whether that be Windows Media Player, whatever. Listen to them, make sure they work, because you will not be able to bounce down tracks after the exam if you find out they don't work, and you will lose loads of marks. You have to be able to do the bounce downs. Your teacher is not allowed to do them for you. This is part of the exam, okay? So if your teacher's been that person that's been doing all your bounce downs up until now, well, now you need to learn, because you will be expected to do them for yourself, okay? What I say to my students is go in before the exam, maybe the day before or a couple of hours before, go into the room, make sure you understand how to set up your DAW properly and set up your filing structure so you know where the files are kept. Make sure that you can import audio and that both your headphone speakers left and right work, and make sure you know how to bounce down and that the bounce downs are successful. Once you've done that, that will save you all the panic during the exam. Now, below this particular sheet, Sam, a guy that works here on musictechstudent.co.uk, has been working tirelessly on some music production worksheets. He's currently got 4 ready for this exam, and they go through some of the practical tasks that you're going to need to do. So have a look at those, have a go through some of those ones. If that's not enough for you, also have a look at the A2 listening test book. You have to buy the CD separately. But there's loads of good practical exams in there as well for you to kind of hone in your skills and just understand the common tasks that you could be asked, which are always including some kind of editing techniques where you have to cut up audio or trim audio or move audio, or put audio into time in some way, or put a fade on or something like that. Very basic editing techniques that you should all know by far now. Okay, and then you get some mixing techniques where you have to you'll get asked a question, okay, let's automate this particular filter, or let's automate this particular volume or EQ, or set up the EQ in this particular way, or set up a compression in this particular way, or set up a gate in this particular way. And they generally give you the instructions that they want. And if you're unsure about the questions, obviously do a mock exam, but also below, if you go right to the bottom of this page, I've put in some general editing, mixing techniques and practical production techniques that you could be asked from previous exams. Okay. Next one is listening and analyzing. You could get a question like this. Okay. The bass part needs to have these particular notes, but these notes are wrong. Can you put these notes in and then make the bass sound like the one from the audio track? Replace the audio track with your newly created MIDI part, okay? So in that, you have to correct the rhythm, you have to correct the notes, you have to make the bass sound like they want it to, based on the instructions they give you, and then bounce that down. That's getting to be more and more common, understanding kind of sound creation. And you've done loads of this in task A, so it's not a problem. The next one, the sound creation task, you also get same as before, where you get given a set of instructions and you have to recreate the synthesis to a particular sound. But you could also get given a question where it says, actually, this particular note is out of tune. Can you edit the MIDI settings to make it in tune? Where you have to go into the MIDI controllers and actually edit them to get them back in tune. And then you'll probably get given a question on why was that out of tune as well. And then finally, the bounce downs, making sure that you bounce down successfully before the exam ends. You have to do this. Your teacher can't do it. You have to do it. So make sure you're very aware of how to bounce down. Otherwise, you will lose the majority of the marks. Probably best part of 50% of these marks go towards these tasks. So if you're unsure of how to bounce down properly, you need to know how to do that. Okay, final thoughts. Understand the common tasks. I've put all of the common tasks below this video, so have a look at them, have a look at the past questions, and do lots and lots of practice.